Hi there. Today we are making aloo Porotta or aloo Paratha or aloo Paratha.
Porotta, please.
They're called Porotta in South India, in Kerala, where we lived. But further north, you'll find them called Paratha most of the time. If you go to an Indian restaurant in North America, chances are it's going to be a North Indian restaurant and they'll probably be called Paratha. Paratha, Porotta are a kind of flatbread. Aloo means potato. So what this is it's a flatbread that is stuffed with a mashed potato spicy mixture.
You actually left out one thing. They're really, really yummy.
Yes, that's true. They are. Thanks, Rob. We needed that.
Well, you know,
so
just doing my
they're
bit.
yummy flatbreads. Now, I believe they're supposed to be a breakfast food. We ate them a lot as snacks and lunch when we were living in South India. You can make them into a bigger meal by adding other things. Tonight we're going to have dal and a cabbage toran, which is cabbage and coconut, with it to bulk up the meal. But whether you want to have it as a snack or have it as more, they are very tasty, as Rob said. So let's get started with making them. Now, what we're going to do is we've got 2 cups of whole wheat flour here. And we're going to make, first we're going to put half a teaspoon of salt in. Now, we buy our salt, whether it's kosher salt or sea salt, with no additives, usually in a coarse form. I blitz this in the blender to get it fine. So that's half a teaspoon of fine salt.
Just because it mixes easier, right?
It does, and that's why I didn't want to put the coarse in. Plus, the measurement is different for coarse and fine salt. So I'm just going to mix those 2 things together there, the dry ingredients, and then I'm making a well in the center is the way they put it, right?
Wow.
And which means just there's less flour in the middle, more on the sides, as you can see. And I'm putting in a tablespoon of oil. This is sunflower oil, but any oil that you use that is a neutral oil, that's like peanut oil or canola if you want to use it.
Do you use coconut oil for that?
Not usually, no.
Okay.
Because again, this is often done in northern India, where you could use ghee. If you have ghee, you can also totally do that here. But we're using sunflower oil. And then the water depends on your flour. So at most, I'm thinking you're probably going to use about a half cup, but I'm not going to start by adding that. I'm going to add a good portion of it, but not all of it. And then, because I'm a hands-on kind of gal, I'm going to start mixing the liquid into the flour.
And do you do like a wet hand, dry hand kind of regimen, or?
It's not necessary at this point. There's not really a need for...
A need? Oh, very funny.
Because I will be kneading shortly. So, although the dry hand's really good for pushing up your sleeve. Okay, so I'm feeling that this is pretty dry. You can see that I've got a shaggy dough here.
Whoa.
And that is not all going to come together. I'm not going to be able to get all of the flour in there if I don't add more liquid. So that's also a good reason to have, yes, the wet hand to the dry hand, right?
Episode of Scooby-Doo, the shaggy dough.
Yes, the shaggy dough. The mystery of the shaggy dough. Okay. And so I'm starting to get more of a dough here, but you know what? This flour.
Go for broke.
This flour might take more than others. Whole wheat flour absorbs more liquid than white flour does. But your whole wheat flours are different. They're not interchangeable. You can actually see the bran in this flour, whereas a lot of...
Does it even take more?
Yes, it will. So a lot of flours are even... finer, and you can't see the bran. It's more incorporated. So yes, I'm going to get a little more water because I can do that and keep mixing. But again, I'm only adding a bit at a time, maybe a couple of tablespoons, because I don't want it to be too wet.
Now, is there a reason you do this by hand instead of using like the dough hook and then on the mixie, or are you just kicking it old school?
I'm kicking it old school, and because it's really not that much work, and because in India, it's pretty rare that anyone's got a stand mixer like a KitchenAid. So this is how I, think of doing it. Okay, so now I've got it all together, and in fact, I'd argue that maybe I put just a touch too much water. And that could be a never-ending thing where you go back and forth between, but you see it's a bit sticky.
Dinner's ruined.
No, it really isn't. So what I'll end up doing is adding slightly more, like literally a teaspoon of flour, but only after I've seen if kneading it will do the trick. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping it in the bowl rather than having to flour the counter, and I'm kneading it in the bowl, which means all I'm doing is taking a bit, pushing it over onto itself, and pushing with the heel of my hand. That's all, and I'm turning the bowl as I do that. That's all kneading is.
And that develops the gluten and makes it soft as a baby's bottom.
Smooth, not soft, smooth as a baby's bottom. So here's the deal. You don't need to see me knead this for 8 minutes. And yeah, you absolutely could put it in the KitchenAid if you have one. But 8 minutes of kneading is not the end of the world. You know, have a glass of wine off on the side, chat with whoever you live with, you know, spend a bit of time. It really doesn't take that long. And it's not it's not like mayonnaise. That was a bit more of a workout. Although this, yeah.
We could keep filming. This is gripping drama.
Really? Anyway, what we'll do is we'll come back and show you what it looks like when it's nice and smooth. So we're back. It's been, I don't know, less than 10 minutes, but you can see that I got the dough out of the bowl, and it turned out that I did not put too much water in. I did not need to add any flour, and it's not sticking. It's pretty much the perfect amount of moisture. So this particular flour is a coarser whole wheat, as I said before, with the bran in it. So I'm not going to get a perfectly smooth as a baby's bottom effect here. If it was white flour, we could. If it was a finer whole wheat, we could. But I know just from experience that this is pretty much where I want it to be. So I'm going to just shape it into a ball like that, pop it into a bowl, put a tea towel over it, and leave it for 20 to 30 minutes to rest. It needs time to do its thing, its magic stuff that flour and water does together. And we'll come back and show you what you do next after that. So we're back, and it's been about 30 minutes, and all I've done is taken the dough out of the bowl, and I've made it into 10 pieces that are approximately the same size. While you're working with one piece, keep the others covered with a cloth so they don't dry out. That's standard for most dough, bready things that you might be thinking about doing. Now I'm just gonna roll this into a ball, and if you've got a decent ball to start with and it's fairly round, your Porotta is probably going to be round-ish. But I gotta tell you, I am not great at this the way the women in India who make chapatis every day and are always perfectly round. It blows me away because my chapatis are often
Oblong.
interesting shapes, right? That was interpreted.
That was very, very good.
Yeah, thanks. So, Porotta, like chapati, should also be round. We'll see how we go. But if they're not perfect, they'll be tasty, and that's okay. Okay? So, as you see, I don't have any flour down. All I am doing is rolling the dough out, and I'm picking it up and moving it to make sure it's not sticking, and also to make sure that I'm getting, the way you get a round one is by being really even with how you roll, and obviously I'm not.
That's how we roll.
But that is also why I pick it up and move it, so that I'm making sure that I'm getting it in all the right places. Now I haven't talked much about the filling. The filling is potato, mashed potato specifically. And you want it to be pretty smooth because if it has bits that are hard, they can poke out of the dough and break your Porotta. Now, what we have here is leftover. It was like a masala potato dish that we had last night, and I just smushed it till it was smooth. This is a great way to use leftover potatoes. I mean, of course, you can boil some potatoes and mash them, especially for this, and then add some seasonings. Typical seasonings would be, if you want to go the Indian route with these and be fairly traditional, you might want to add a little bit of ghee or oil. You might want to add cumin, coriander, chopped chilies. Ginger is, but very fine, because again, you don't want those bits poking out. All of this turmeric, of course. Our potatoes, you can see the color, part of that comes from turmeric. So all of those are traditional flavors. But I was thinking about this earlier today before we started filming. If you have mashed potatoes in the fridge that have butter and milk in them,
yeah, baby.
And if you don't care if this is an Indian meal, you're just looking for a yummy snack to use up your mashed potatoes, throw some grated cheese in there. Why not? Like,
wild thing.
Seriously, this would be an interesting like pizza pocket moment. Like, go for it. Do what you want to do. Flavor it however you want to flavor it. But if you're going traditionally, like I said, chilies, ginger, cumin, coriander, cilantro, turmeric, those sorts of things. So all I'm doing is trying to make a thin and somewhat even round.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, not horrible, right? And then what I'm going to do, and this reminds me of making Chinese dumplings, which I've done quite a bit in my life, is take a scoop of that potato. And like I said, you want it to be really smooth. If you have chunks in there, I tried to actually go in with my hands and make sure it was all pretty smooth. If you have chunks, it'll go through the dough, and you don't want that. Now I'm going to make these like bao. Now I'm imagining most of you don't know how to make bao, but if you have, basically what you're doing is you're pinching your dough into the center over your filling. So you get this nice little pocket. That's what a bao looks like if you're doing Chinese food.
Oof.
Approximately. Of course, not ever with whole wheat or anything like that. Anyway, so then what I'm going to do, I just gave it a little bit of a smush. Now this is where we have to be careful. I'm going to turn it upside down so that seam is on the bottom, because every time I roll, it's going to make that seam adhere a little bit better. We are going to roll gently here, because this is where your filling can break through. And what we're trying to get is the filling in the middle and the dough on the outside, and no breaking through at all.
This is not your breakthrough moment.
No, please, no breaking through at this point. Other breakthroughs are welcome. This not so much. Okay.
It's working really well. I'm going to zoom in here.
I'm trying to make it as even as I can. I can see this bit, maybe you can't see that with the camera, is thicker than it is here. You do not want your edges to be thicker than the middle, because what you might end up having is a Porotta that is kind of, oh, you see this little explosion on the side? Can you see that?
Dinner's ruined.
It's okay. It's totally okay. And in fact, one of the blogs that I was looking at, the woman suggested that if you have a little blowout like that, you can take a little bit of dough from one of the other balls, stick it on there. I'm not too concerned.
Forget about it.
Now, I probably won't be able to get this quite as thick or as big and as thin as it was before the stuffing, the filling. Yeah, I'm definitely having a blowout there. And these ones are a little on the small side, I have to say. Ordinarily, I would be going for a Porotta about that big. But you know what? I'm going to stop at this point, because I feel like if I go any further here, although patting it out helps a bit, if I go any further here, I might actually just lose my filling altogether. That's not a euphemism for anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this under a tea towel, and I'm going to make up a bunch more. And then we're going to come back and fry them so that you can see how that's done. So we're back again, and I have rolled out all 10 of those balls with the potato filling. And lessons learned while I was doing it. I think a tablespoon, maybe a touch more of filling is your best bet. Err on the side of less filling rather than more. You're going to have explosions. None of mine are absolutely perfect, and that's great, because I wanted to show you that. That's fine. They're still going to be really tasty. The other thing I would say is you end up with little air pockets in there. Do your best to work with them. And yeah. And I also wanted to say, I was thinking about the Porotta that we had in South India, in Cochin. That's a different kind of Porotta. That's like the croissant of flatbreads in India, and called Porotta in Kerala, and in
Roti canai.
Roti canai in Malaysia. So if you've ever had that, that's fabulous, but it's a whole different beast. So we have been heating this up, And we're gonna start there. The different websites that I went to looking for these recipes over the years, some say to start with oil or ghee in the pan. Some say to start with a dry pan. I'm starting with dry. We flip it over and then we add some oil for a second flip. So you're going for a medium-high to high heat. Apparently a low heat, I've never done it, but apparently a low heat will make Rob, are you distracted?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Excellent,
no,
good. We have one thing going on here.
I know. No, I haven't stopped pointing at you. It's just the dog is going batshit crazy over there.
So you can see that that's hot, or maybe you can hear that little sizzle that is hot. You totally distracted. I don't even know where I was going with that.
Okay, you got it in the pan. It's heated, medium-high heat.
Yeah.
And you did a hell of a job rolling it
Oh,
out.
no, what I was saying is if your heat is too low, apparently your Porotta will be hard and tough.
Oh.
And we don't want that.
Did not know that.
No.
Tough
We don't like hard and tough for our bready things, right? The outside should be crisp and fried, and the inside should be soft and hot and yummy, right? So, depending on how high your pan is, you gotta sort of have a look and see what you're doing there.
Let's see, on the underside, is that getting...
Some of the flour is starting, but what we want is a little bit of brown on that side before we flip it over, and then we'll start putting some oil on. And there's no way to speed this up for the camera. I'm so sorry. So when we were in Cochin, living in Cochin, also called Kochi in Kerala, there is a restaurant there. I'm going to shout out to Uncle. I don't think he's going to end up watching this, but Uncle, if you're out there, Uncle owns the Punjab House, which is a fabulous restaurant just off Broadway where you buy clothing and fabrics in Kochi. And it's, as far as I know, when we were there anyway, the only Punjabi restaurant in Kochi. And their aloo paratha are phenomenal, and it was served with a blob of yogurt, what's called curd or kurda there, a fresh green chili that you can just chomp on, hot, but the yogurt works with
onions and lime, right?
Red onions and a lime to squeeze some lime juice. So I'm going to flip that over. We got a little bit of brown on there, just a touch, and you can see my blowout on the side there. And what I'm going to do, I'm not ashamed. They're going to be so tasty. While the second side is getting that first cook, the first side is going to get a little oil. And again, that can be ghee. And if you're in northern India, it probably would be ghee. Uncle, he didn't use coconut oil, but I guess in Kerala you could use coconut oil if you wanted. But this is not a traditional Kerala dish. This is more of a northern dish. Let's see how that bottom side's looking. Not quite there.
Yeah, that place is amazing.
Really, so good. And the last time that we were there, he treated us to all sorts of wonderful dishes. The full menu, it felt like. There were all sorts of things coming out that we had never had when we were there because we liked their Parottas so much that we would go there specifically for that and rarely order much else because it was just so gosh darn good. And it was our friend Rajesh who took us there the first time, and we owe him huge debts of gratitude for all of the places he took us, the toddy shop,
Oh, you're making me hungry now.
Yeah, the Punjab House. So anyway.
Not to mention severe wanderlust.
Yeah. So you can see there's some brown on this side.
Oh, yes.
And I'm going to put a little bit of oil there.
There you go.
And so we're doing a second on both sides. So we're now on the second time on the first side, and then we're going to go and do second time on the second side. And that, I'm seeing a little bit of smoke there that I don't like, which means I'm going to have to turn on the fan in a sec. But that's pretty much it. I don't need to show you more except what they look like when they're done, so we'll come back then. So we're back for the final time for this particular recipe, and I have fried all of those Porotta, and like I said, twice on each side, the first time with no oil, the second time with oil, but you know what? Since you've oiled the ones that were in there before, there's a residual oil in the pan. Whatever, it's all good. Keep the temperature high. You're going for brown bubbles. We have this handy dandy thing that we brought back from India with us. That is, I guess, a chapati warmer. It could be a tortilla warmer. You could have a basket with a tea towel in it that you keep these in, just to keep them warm until
really
they're
effective.
all done.
It's really effective.
This one's insulated, so it really does keep things warm, but have a look.
Ooh, it's ever so nice.
See, those are all of the aloo paratha done. And so we're going to serve those up on a plate with some dal and with some cabbage torin and have a lovely, happens to be vegan meal. And it's going to be really good. So I hope you try this. It's not as daunting as it might seem. Once you get into the hang of things, it's not challenging. When you're cooking them, you can use your spatula to press down a little bit. It helps them puff a little inside, because puffing once it's in the pan is good. Puffing when you're rolling, not as good. So anyway, I do hope you try them, because they're not that hard and they're super delicious, and you're probably not going to be able to get them where you live. So go ahead and make yourself some aloo paratha.